Welcome to The Secret Place with Bennett, devotions for hungry hearts and searching souls.
Hi everybody, it's Steffa in The Secret Place. I'm glad you came back. So today I've got Now and Again, Henry Now and Again, but it's a different book. This is called The Inner Voice of Love. It's one of my favorite Now and books. It's just, you know what it is? Every day there's a little extra reading. It's not like officially a devotional, but you can use it as a devotional because it's just little ideas expanded upon. The idea that he brings today that I would like to share with you is very small. It's just a very small paragraph, and it's on page 3. It goes like this. There's a deep hole in your being, like an abyss. You will never succeed in filling that hole because your needs are inexhaustible. You have to work around it so that gradually the abyss closes. Since the hole is so enormous and your anguish is so deep, you will always be tempted to flee from it. There are 2 extremes to avoid: being completely absorbed in your pain and being distracted by so many things that you stay far away from the wound you want to heal. Well, we talk about wounds so much here on The Secret Place. I guess if you're listening, you're not afraid to hear it or talk about it or think about your own wounds. But I know that it's never gonna make The Secret Place go viral, because it's hard stuff to talk about. Wounds. I mean, when you get a physical wound, or I get a physical wound, a deep gash or a cut, or even a small one, it lasts for days, sometimes even weeks, and yet you have to kind of nurse yourself back and be careful around it. But at least you can see it if you have a gash, right? When there's a wound emotionally that you or I have, we can't see it. And not everybody wears those wounds on their faces. In fact, many of us don't. Some people do. You can really see it on their faces, but many of us just don't. It's important to talk about the wounds, because if we don't talk about them and deal with them, then we always just stuff them. We are never going to be healed from it. It's like just think about your arm again. If you had a gash on your arm and you never dressed it, you never cleaned it, you never put ointment on it, never put a bandage on it. Let's say it needed stitches and you just never dealt with it. I mean, that's going to look ugly. Will it ever heal? It's never going to be the same. And if it ever does heal, it's going to take a long time to heal. So it's not wise to flee from our wounds and not deal with them. But it's easy to do because we're not bleeding, right? It's not getting all over everything. On the other hand, sometimes our emotional wounds do get all over on everything, if you know what I mean. They come out sideways. We lash out at our spouse. We have road rage, or we, are just, at odds constantly with a coworker. This stuff can come out in ways that create a mess. And, God's not afraid of our mess. He made us human, and he knew we were going to make messes, both physically and emotionally. And so we can bring all of those wounds to him. And part of, I think, bringing to him, I've done it both ways. Calling out to God, saying, I'm hurting. Show me my heart. Reveal it to me, Lord. Reveal it to me, Jesus. What is going on in here? Why am I so sad? Or why am I lashing out so much? Or why am I annoyed so much? For me, it's the annoyed thing. I find myself, I'm not usually annoyed by many things, but when I go through a spate where I'm getting annoyed at little things all the time, I know. I'm like, Lord, show me what it is. What is going on inside of me? Because sometimes we're just blind to it ourselves, right? One of the ways, and then of course there's the distractions that Nowen talked about. We can just, maybe we want to be healed, or we want to understand what's going on inside of us, or deal with it, or deal with the pain, but we're distracted. there's just a million and one things happening. And they're all emergencies, right? They're all so important. So those are two extremes. We don't want to give ourselves to one completely or the other, because, if you just focus too much on your wounds and just zero down and drill down on those wounds and just never let yourself think about anything else, that's going to be a real downer. That's not healthy. That's not healthy either. Or if we, just allow ourselves to be so distracted by other important things, that's all the time, because there are other important things, it's not good. It's not good either. One of the things that I've been doing and that I've been finding in the last few years that has been helpful, and interestingly helpful, some of you have asked me about it, is I've gotten to study the Enneagram, that 9-point personality pattern typology, that helps us find out or figure out some of our blind spots and help us address some of the childhood wounds that maybe we don't even, that we weren't even aware that we had. I had stayed away from all of that for so many years, just because I found it easier to cope and deal with life without dredging up old emotions. But the Enneagram, in God's hands, from my point of view, that's how I use it, as a tool of the Lord God, to help in my healing and transformation process. But many people use it. Many people who aren't Christians or who aren't religious at all use it, and they all use it in their own unique way, I guess. But one of the things that I found is that it really helps those niggling relationships that never kind of get resolved. And so my friend and I, my fine coworker Israel Balderas and I, started a new podcast. It's called the EnneaBuzz, EnneaBuzz, the EnneaBuzz, and it's on iTunes. It's totally different from what I'm sharing here in the secret place. This is, of course, is a much more spiritual emphasis, and dealing with the Lord our God, and coming from that perspective that He is our healer. And even though on the EnneaBuzz, I don't change. We both still know that God is our healer, and He is the one, and He is the center of our lives. The EnneaBuzz strictly deals with people's stories and how the Enneagram can help, and how they found their number, and how the typing of the personality pattern really helped them to see blind spots, and then how it helps put them on the road or fast forward on the road to healing, to transformation. So if you're interested in that, I had promised, I know months ago, I was going to talk about the Enneagram again, but I don't know. I really rather do a podcast rather than bring it too much into the secret place here. So if you're interested, go find it on iTunes. It's also on Podbean, but I think everybody has iTunes on their phone or on their computer. And it's free, of course. And, drop us a line if you want more information or have some questions. We have a place on our website for comments and questions. And so I find that the Enneagram, away from the commercial, back to now, and is that the Enneagram is that tool that can help us from being distracted by so many things, that we stay so far away from our emotional truth and our emotional realities, I should say. And it helps us also to kind of step back from the abyss that Nowen is talking about, that deep hole in our heart. You may have heard about this before, or heard it put this way before. When I was 17, this is how I heard of it. My dear friend, one of my dearest friends in the whole wide world, shared with me, when she first shared with me about Jesus, she addressed that hole in my heart. She said, no, you've got your life. Your life is together. I see it. You're this, you're that. You've got this, but I see this big hole in your heart. To which I filled up immediately. And even though I didn't believe in God at that point, she took me into the scriptures and we started reading it, and I realized, well, that's something I know is true. Even if I don't know that God is true or He's really there, I know I've got this big old abyss, this big rabbit hole in my heart that I just kind of can fall into and then go, who knows where I'm going. And it was that moment on that I began addressing the Lord and seeking the Lord and looking to the Lord God who made us to fill that hole, to close that abyss, to keep me from dangling on it. And he has all these 40 plus years later. He has. Gosh, so much has happened in my life, as I'm sure in your life too. And God has been there through it all. He's faithful. He's faithful. And, even when things don't go as we hope or as we wish, or when they go drastically wrong, knowing that God is with us, Emmanuel, changes everything. It really does. So anyway, hope you had a good time in the secret place today, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. And please leave me a comment. I love to relate. I love to relate to you, and I'm thinking about people who are listening and people who are commenting. I'm praying for you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye now.
Breathe, listen, and receive. Take a moment to soak it all in. Until next time.